Hi everyone, and welcome to what I think is going to be a really, really interesting panel discussion. I'm joined by a group of experts today, and we're going to talk about the Advanced Genomics Collaboration. This is a partnership between the University of Melbourne and genomics technology company Illumina. My name is Paul Cross. I'm the publisher of Pharma Dispatch. I've been asked to moderate this session. I'm absolutely delighted to do it. Genomics is something that a lot of people are talking about and everyone is interested in. It's a rapidly evolving, disruptive technology, disruptive at the system level, I think, of both research and the health system, and has the potential and the hope to deliver really, really amazing outcomes for patients. It's going to change the lives of a lot of people. It's going to have to change the way that we do things at a health system level, and I think that's really, really exciting. I'm delighted to be joined today by Professor Jim McClusky from the University of Melbourne, Tom Berkovits from Illumina, and Danni Jarrett, who's the CEO of Invest Victoria. Welcome, everyone. But Professor McClusky, I'd like to start with you, and just if you could give us your thoughts on, what is this Advanced Genomics Collaboration, and why is it something for the University of Melbourne?
Well, this is a collaboration between the university that anchors the Parkville Biomedical Precinct, and so it really will eventually involve everybody in the precinct, and Illumina, who are, I think, the biggest genomics company in the world. Genomics, as you said, is revolutionising medicine. I mean, we're all different, and that difference manifests in many different ways: how we respond to viruses, the types of diseases we get, our response to treatments, our likelihood of getting cancer. And we now have the tools to be able to explore that, but it's moving so fast that getting it right, getting it centred properly in clinical medicine, where the tests are high quality, informative, add value, economically sustainable, quality controlled, need the fusion of the academic discovery component and then the industry know-how about how to turn that into something that practical and works and can navigate itself through the system to be mainstreamed into effectively pathology services. You could go over with a feather when I woke up one morning and heard the morning news announcing breathlessly that genomic testing had identified a new variant of COVID-19. I would find that difficult to say to a bunch of medical students because they'd say, what? Now it's mainstreamed in our lexicon. But the pace at which this is happening needs a lot of different input to get it right.
Danni, Invest Victoria has really got behind this initiative. Why? Why does Victoria, why does your organisation see it as something that's worth getting behind?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We were absolutely excited by the prospect of supporting the Advanced Genomics Collaboration. It really does place Victoria at the front of medical research innovation with the partnership between Illumina as the leading global research company and also one of Australia's prominent universities in the University of Melbourne. The Advanced Genomics Collaboration is the first genomics hub in the Asia Pacific, and having Victoria as its home really gives us a lot of pride, but also really confirms that we are the leading medical research state in Australia and in the region. The Genomics Collaboration has bolstered the local biotech ecosystem, but by locating itself in Melbourne's biomedical precinct, it also benefits from being in the presence of over 40 world-class biomedical organisations with leading hospitals and clinical research leaders. So having that collaboration and co-location of leading research organisations, the Advanced Genomics Collaboration is ultimately going to drive better public health outcomes in research and diagnostics. It's also a big winner for job creation, and it will create hundreds of jobs and has also already generated opportunities for local businesses and clinical trials, boosting links between industry, research and education providers. As a state government, Victoria is committed to staying at the forefront of innovation. And so over 20 years, we've developed a globally competitive research and innovation ecosystem. And that has enabled some of the nations and indeed some of the world's innovative ideas and businesses to succeed. So we were really excited that this collaboration has the potential to create a pipeline of commercialisation projects and startups in the state.
Thanks, Danni. Tom, Illumina is a large global company, could invest in any number of locations. Why is it chosen to invest in Australia, and why in this collaboration?
Thanks, Paul. So I can answer the why Australia question first. Pretty simply, it's a product of geography. So more than 2/3 of the world's population live in Asia Pacific, if we include China. And, the region is incredibly vibrant and very diverse. But for a company like us, that also presents its own set of challenges when you consider the complexity of the disease, the population diversity, and the differences in living standards that we see across the various geographies that make up Asia Pacific. By 2030, 3 of the 5 largest healthcare expenditures by geography will reside within the region. And so us as a company, we need to be thinking about products and services that are specifically tailored towards this market and that meet the future needs of the countries and their populations. And there's huge opportunity here if we can find the right areas to focus on. And so Melbourne and the biomedical precinct offers a unique opportunity for us, particularly given it's anchored around the university. And, we've got access to exceptional research facilities, world-class scientists, and a really strong but flexible regulatory regime. If you look at international benchmarking done by the Economist's Intelligence Unit, they look at a range of industry indicators, including things like clinical trials, access to regulatory and business investment, and the IP situation that resides here. And Australia ranks really high for competitiveness in both its biotechnology and its ability to conduct clinical trials. And so our partnership with the university, it gives us access to some of the most talented personnel in the field of genomics, and it allows us to put researchers, students, and precinct partners at the forefront of the global genomics revolution. And so we feel like together there's no doubt that we'll bring forward the best genomics expertise and the technology and to continue to expand academic research and other opportunities within the region.
Thanks, Tom. I want to explore a few of these issues in a bit more detail now. Professor McClusky, we talk about genomics seems to be one of those words that we hear virtually every day now. A lot of people are talking about it. We see media releases from all sorts of governments and jurisdictions announcing all sorts of things. But do you think there's a system level understanding of what it is? And we had this discussion in a parliamentary inquiry last year. But do you think we need to take a step back as a country maybe and sort of think about how we're going to have system level changes to adopt genomics institutionally at the research level, but also when we translate it actually into the benefit of patients?
The answer is yes. We need to make haste slowly. Fundamentally, we're talking about the blueprint for human life and what makes us different at a sort of biochemical level. And there are a lot of implications then around that. Privacy implications, around ethnic identity and cultural identity, which can be challenged by genomics, and then massive implications for workforce training, interpretation, understanding, and appropriate use of genomic information. We have issues around, the ethics of the way genomics is used. If it becomes clear that a genomic profile predicts certain diseases or shortened lifespan, how is that used by insurance companies setting premiums? Simple example. I know from firsthand that working with some Indigenous communities, it's a very sensitive issue to be saying, well, your origins look like they might be from this part of the world rather in that part of the world are challenging. So it is a minefield. And we do need to make hay slowly, and we need to make sure that there's proper regulation, appropriate social science overlay on how we use this amazing new information. But I think we'll manage that. I think we'll be able to cope with that. I think the benefits are what are most exciting. And I would say that one of the reasons why the university and the Melbourne Biomedical Precinct partnership with Illumina is important is that we have within that community the scholars and intellectuals and policy thinkers to manage those big complex social issues. We have economists and lawyers and social scientists and philosophers. We have public policy experts within government. And so I think we'll be able to do this. It's grasping the scale and scope of the challenge, and that certainly underpins this partnership. We could not do this alone, and I think Illumina would struggle to do this without input from scholars and deep thinkers in these areas.
Danni, from the state's perspective, obviously the precinct in Melbourne is growing and has grown incredibly quickly. Where do you see the collaboration in that wider precinct, and what would you like that to look like in maybe 5 or 10 years?
The landscape of genomic sequencing is evolving rapidly, and it's not only revolutionising the biomedical research, but it's also revolutionising medical practice. And as Professor McClusky says, that the concept and the referencing to genomic sequencing, is now in our common vernacular, which, not too distant past, it was something that we couldn't grasp our minds around. Our vision at Invest Victoria is really to listen to and to work with industry and the research community by facilitating informed investment and ensuring that precise genomics-based diagnostics will become a fast and affordable and integral part of everyday biomedical research and clinical care. Our goal in this regard is really to work with the Commonwealth and other government agencies to recognise how genomics can provide better patient outcomes and community outcomes with lower overall costs to the health system. And in doing that, we really focus then on how we can present the opportunities to international investors to really generate that critical mass, consolidate our position as a leader in genomics research in the nation.
Thanks, Danni. Professor McClusky, what is it? If I was a patient, what's this? What's the promise for me? So what's it going to mean for me as a patient in 5 or 10 years with the emergence of genomics?
Let's say you're a patient with cancer. 10 years ago, the approach would be to go through a series of drug options that have worked 30, 40, 50%. And if they fail, we take another set of drug options. And if that fails, we try a third set. And if that fails, we give the patient bad news. We've used blanket therapies on people who are all different and actually all have different. They might have lung cancer, but what type of lung cancer? What gene has mutated? What is the molecular mechanism of that cancer? And so now we have the capacity in many cases, not all, but in many, to specifically say we understand cancer at a molecular genetic level. We understand the genomics of your cancer cells. We know which genes are deregulated and causing this uncontrolled growth of your cells. And that allows us to jump straight to the treatment that we know works for that type. So this is often called precision medicine because it's far more precise in its targeting than the historical way of just blunt scrolling through therapies that have been adopted in clinical trials and showed to work for some patients, but not all. So this precision medicine is really, really very powerful. And one of the aspects of the partnership with Illumina is it's being refined, extended through research and development in the university and then applied through the platforms and know-how of Illumina. And what's striking is that the scale at which this can be done, we can look at every gene in the body. We can do it in 24, 48 hours. We can do it with great precision. And we are developing through the partnership and other work the technology platforms to handle the massive data that's involved. And so it becomes meaningful in a clinical context. It's not something you hear about 6 months later. It's something that factors into the treatment program for you as an individual. So very powerful.
Danni, if the last 2 years, 2 and a bit years now, have taught us anything, it's the relationship between investment, the economy, and health. That there's a very short link. So when Invest Victoria is deciding where to direct its resources, how important is the health outcome? Because what we're talking about with this collaboration is ultimately delivering a really beneficial health outcome. And how important is that to your decisions?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Look, for Invest Victoria, we focus on where Victoria is competitive, insofar as our competitive position from an investor's perspective, but also where we're seeking to position ourselves for long-term economic growth and beneficial outcomes for the community across all sectors of the community. Clearly, biomedical research, particularly in the area that we've been talking about with the Genomics Centre, is an area that we see Victoria is particularly competitive and also interested in terms of the impacts it has, both from a health outcome as well as the impact for job creation and the connection across multiple platforms, whether it's specific to cancer patients, but also the impact and the breadth of genomics research across all parts of the health system. So when we look at investments, we look at it from a sectoral perspective, but also the broader impact it has across our economy, whether it's in biomedical research, the manufacturing aspect from an advanced manufacturing capability for the state, the impact and the collaboration that it presents to universities and research institutes and so forth. So when we were talking with Illumina around the opportunity to set up the Genomics Collaboration Centre, it really ticked every box for us. And so it was very much the type of investment that Invest Victoria not only supports, but we actively go out and seek internationally as well.
Thanks, Danni. Now, Tom, it must be incredibly exciting to work in genomics, and this is congratulations on the collaboration with the university and what it means. But how can organisations, how can researchers, how can people access what you're doing in the collaboration? How can they be part of it?
Yeah, so we've set up the Advanced Genomics Collaboration, and through that there's now a website, and there's some media that's going out as part of that. We have, along with the university, created an extension of what we have in the US, which is our Illumina Accelerator program, which aims to advance, new applications in genomics, including therapeutics and diagnostics. And so an extension of that is what we call our Illumina for Startups, which is our way of accelerating innovation in the entrepreneurial community, partnering with leading capital investors and others to launch and grow new startups and new applications in genomics. And, we focus at the moment very much on the medical aspect of this, but moving forward, we're also interested in the agrigenomics space, in aquaculture and other areas as well, because as primary producers, there are other areas that genomics can play a significant role in as well. So, part of the extension of the accelerator program is our ability to offer affordable, scalable sequencing, and some research expertise and infrastructure, including data analysis, to people who have promising ideas or entrepreneurial potential for commercial startups moving forward. And there will be a series of intakes that we take up each year, and people can access that through our website. The other thing that we've done is we've stood up the Illumina Innovation Collective, which is a fully equipped laboratory where collaborators have the opportunity to use some of our products and solutions, especially in that startup phase of their work, and trying to continue to drive scientific advance in a variety of areas. So this is unique for us. It's the first location globally where we're hosting both wet lab and dry lab facilities. So we've got the wet lab work, and then we've got the analysis side of things as well. And we're making that available to people as well, not only for us to understand the genome, but for us to be able to fully tap into its power, both human and other, moving forward.
Thanks, Tom. Professor McClusky, let's pretend that we're having this conversation in 5 years' time. What would you like us to be talking about in the context of the collaboration, but more broadly about genomics in 5 years' time?
What I'd love to see in 5 years is that we've created a whole genomics ecosystem that draws in scholars, the community, Illumina, that's inspired startup companies, that's driven much greater clinical trials activity, and where we're seeing a mature and thoughtful insertion of genomics into mainstream clinical practice. And we've begun to sort out how we, alluding to some of what Tom mentioned, navigated the minefield of convincing government that these new treatments do improve patient outcomes, are economically sustainable, do improve the health system. But the most exciting bit would be a sense that genomics begins to be at the heart of everything. That when you think of a patient, you think of the genetic background controlling their disease manifestation, the prognosis, the likelihood of responding to a particular treatment. We can do that at scale. And just going back to what Tom said, it's not the patient. Sometimes it's about a microorganism. For us to be able to know this is Omicron or it's Delta is useful information both at a public health level and at a patient level. For us to be able to know this bacterium does or doesn't carry biotic resistance genes has immediate clinical applicability. So I can see a patient record in which you've got the patient's genome in one part of the record and the enemy's genome in the other part of the record, and the clinician's job is to figure out how the patient wins.
Professor McClusky, the University of Melbourne, Danni Jarrett, who's the CEO of Invest Victoria, and Tom Berkovits from Illumina. Thank you very much for joining us today and what has been a fascinating conversation. And I think there's going to be a lot more of these conversations going forward about genomics, because it is emerging and evolving and disrupting, and something that we really look forward to investigating further.
Thank you, Paul.
So much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.